Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Yesterday was definitely interesting and full of tons of headlines that I'm excited to dive into with Will Petersen. Good morning, Will. How are you?
Hey, Rachel. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Wednesday. I'm a little tired. I definitely need a coffee this morning. I went to the stock show last night, so I'm like, it's time to get rolling. But talking about this, the Denver Broncos had their end of season press conference, and there was tons of juicy stuff that we need to get into. So let's first start with the door still being open for Russell Wilson to return. I feel like this is something that people have poked at, but it definitely was made a little bit more clear yesterday by Sean Payton and George Paton and even a little bit of Greg Penner.
Yeah, but I think you can't just say, yeah, we're going to cut him, because then you tip your hand to the rest of the NFL. Rachel, they are still desperately hoping, probably on a whim, 1% chance that there's still some trade value out there for Russell Wilson, and they can get someone else to eat any portion of this massive $245 million contract extension that is set to kick in. You can't just go to the podium and say, yep, we told Russ goodbye, because we're cutting him either with a pre or post June 1st designation, depending on how they want to spread the money out. It was, Russ might come back because Atlanta Falcons, Pittsburgh Steelers get on line one. So that was my interpretation.
Are you telling me that they're being a little shady, Will Petersen?
This one I would say more strategic than shady, because honestly, it's you have to realize that every other QB needy team in the NFL is watching that press conference yesterday. They're all curious what they're going to say, because it's been well outlined. If they cut him, they have to eat all the money, and someone else can go sign Russ for $1 million. So if Atlanta or Pittsburgh, if it's in their plans to sign him for $1 million, they're thinking, great, let's take a flyer on a guy who's made 9 Pro Bowls in 10 years in Seattle, won a Super Bowl, and before he got to Denver, looked like a future Hall of Famer. So, there's definitely an element of gamesmanship here.
Do you actually believe that Russ would be okay staying? He says, I moved my family here, I did everything. Or do you think he's kind of looked at these relationships and he says, no, this is not what I want at all? Because who knows if Russell Wilson will be a starter again in the league, or if he's just going to be a backup. Are you okay with being a backup here in Denver?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because if his only option was backup, then no, he wouldn't do it in Denver. He'd go do it somewhere else, because the bridges have been burned in Denver. He and Sean Payton don't like each other. If the only option to start was in Denver, then maybe that enters a more neutral ground for Russ, where he says, this is my career on the line, so maybe I would stay. Again, he wouldn't be thrilled to do it with Sean, but I think there's going to be opportunities for him to start around this league. I really do. We don't have to go through team by team today, but there's 4 good QBs in the draft, and there's 7 or 8 teams that need them. That means there's going to be 4 teams looking for starters of guys that are already in the league. And I know the order is backwards, which kind of hurts Russ. If you were Russ, you wish it was draft, then free agency, but it's free agency, then the draft. That said, depending on when the Broncos cut him, he may not be available till after the draft. Say, I don't know, Washington doesn't take a QB for whatever reason, or New England doesn't take a QB, or Atlanta doesn't take a QB, then that's the team he's most likely to go sign, because you can't tell me the Falcons are running it back with Ritter and Heineke, or the Steelers are running it back with Pickett or Rudolph. I mean, I know Rudolph's been better the last few weeks, but come on. If you're Mike Tomlin and you see Russell Wilson on the Oakland market for $1 million, you're going to take a flyer on that.
No, for sure. And I thought it was interesting because Sean Payton said that he had a 30-minute long conversation yesterday, or 2 days ago now, with Russell Wilson. Came down and told him he would be the first to know about any decision that was made. But to sit down and have a 30-minute conversation, I was kind of like, okay, what exactly are you discussing for 30 minutes? Are you just talking about the season and some of the struggles that the offense have? Are you talking about the plan of what's going to happen the next couple of weeks? What do you anticipate that conversation looking like?
Yeah, to be a fly on the wall, that one. That would have been
oh my gosh,
really, really fascinating, because we would get to see Sean without the cameras. We'd get to see Russ without the cameras. So we would get to see a raw and honest conversation between the two guys that, let's be honest, this season went south. The meltdown in Motown, the Detroit debacle is sort of when the wheels started coming off, when Sean Payton lost it on Russ on the sideline. So, yeah, I think all your scenarios are good, and they probably did talk about all of them. What went wrong this season? what the future looks like for both of them, if they could possibly ever work together. I mean, just to see Russell Wilson without the robot Russ, and I know we got a glimpse of that at his locker when he did say that they threatened to bench him if the injury guarantee wasn't redone. But yeah, I mean, 30 minutes, we need Hard Knocks. I know Sean said there's only a few times he wants to do Hard Knocks, and this season was one of them. We need the in-season Hard Knocks for that convo because, again, if anyone's watched the show, sometimes there's cameras in the office, but a lot of times it's just a camera mounted on the wall. So without a cameraman staring in your face, guys are going to kind of forget about that camera mounted on the wall, and then we would have gotten the full combo. So jealous of the Miami Dolphins, and we'll see. The Broncos are one of like 6 teams that can get it next year in training camp, because if you didn't make the playoffs and you got a returning head coach, you're eligible. There's only a handful of teams in the NFL. Decent chance for the first time ever the HBO crew is out at Dove Valley next summer.
That would be absolutely insane. But you say like jealous of the Miami Dolphins. I'm not jealous of them because have you saw the weather prediction for this upcoming Saturday as they go to Kansas City? Look, quick side note. Holy smokes, it's supposed to be -5 degrees for them, and the wind chill I think is supposed to be -16.
Well, I got bad news for you, Rachel. That means that's the weather we're getting on Friday. So, it'll just make a pit stop in Denver and then move east over to Kansas City. I have a lot of friends in KC that usually hit me up, hey, what's it doing in Denver? Because that's what they get the next day. So it affects us too, but we're not hosting a playoff game. The Chiefs are, and they had to make that the Peacock game because they want all the Swifties to sign up for Peacock. So, yeah, the fact that's a night game, wow. You could have done some favors, made that at least a 1:00 game. Maybe the sun would be out and help you a little bit. But, yeah, night game, negative temperatures. Tyreek Hill, the return. He's played in a lot of cold games there. He's going to have to be special for Miami to have any chance.
True, and if you are a fan down in KC, you can get into the game for $69. You don't see playoff tickets usually that cheap. All right, moving back to the Broncos, though. Number 2 thing we have to talk about. The future of Russ is obviously still up in the air, but it seems like the future of this guy, George Paton, seems like he's going to be sticking around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, you don't give him a microphone yesterday unless he still has a job. So yeah. I had a lot of people hit me up, hey, what's going on with George? They didn't make an announcement on George. They gave him a microphone. That's as good as an announcement. He is here to stay. How long? I don't know. At least through the draft. That's what we learned yesterday. He'll be here the next 4 months. Disappointing to me. I mean, I've said they should have fired George Paton when they fired Nathaniel Hackett. We're now, 375, 380 days removed from that. Black Monday this year, it's a common term around the NFL. I thought they should have fired George Paton. They didn't. Here's the analogy I'll use, Rachel. It's like, say you're building a brand new house and you hire an electrician and his faulty wiring burns that house to the ground. And then 6 months later, you're rebuilding and the same electrician shows up and you're going, that guy burned my house to the ground. Why am I letting him do the electric again? George Payton's the electrician. It makes no sense.
Wow. Okay, first of all, I like that way of describing it. But what if he's now like second best and you have a new electrician who's his boss, and so he just kind of has to sit around and watch and make the dirty calls that you don't want to have to do?
You still want the guy who burned your house down anywhere close to it? I don't.
Fair enough, for sure. Well, apparently it's working because it seemed like everybody was talking very highly of him. Sean Payton, Greg Penner, both, it seemed like they're all on good terms. I did find it interesting, though, Will, that I was expecting this to be in like the nice auditorium. All 3 were going to sit down and answer questions, and it was not like that, which makes me to believe that they're not all as close as we were kind of hoping they were going to be. Broncos country was like, oh, like everything is good in that side of things, but they all did individual questions, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, just to counterpoint that, I think they want that for formal, exciting things, right? Formal, exciting is introducing a new head coach, introducing a new star quarterback, introducing a new GM. We went 8-9 and had our 7th straight losing season. We'll put you all in the dungeon and go one by one. That would be my take on it. The big room is for the formal, exciting. Hey, we're so great. The little room is for, hey, we came up short again.
Fair point. I agree. I do think that they like to use that area for, very exciting things. And yeah, I think Sean Payton made a good point of like, no, this was a disappointing season, right? Like, even though we may have improved from the year before, I wasn't here before the year before, but we also didn't make the playoffs. This was a disappointing season. And I think Broncos country should also kind of look at that. I think a lot of people, because we have advanced a little bit from where they were last year, they're kind of looking at this like, oh, it's a step in the right direction, but it still can be a disappointment. 2 things can be true at once.
Yeah, definitely. And for Greg Penner to say, hey, we're just as impatient as you are when it comes to winning, it's a nice sentiment from the owner. But dude, the only thing you're going to do is eat 85 million in dead cap. That doesn't scream to me that you're as impatient as I am. He needed to fire George Paton to appease Broncos country and show he does care as much as we do. Because you can't make statements that you're as impatient as we are and then keep everything the same except screw your salary cap over. What fascinated me, Rachel, is all three of them talked about how bad this salary cap situation is going to be. Yet the man who's the reason they're in that position was one of the three who had the press conference. How ironic is that? It's just disappointing. And I think Greg Penner's a smart man. Actually, let me reframe that. I know Greg Penner is a smart man, but keeping George Paton was not a smart decision and not a smart message to Broncos.
Oh man, yesterday was just so interesting. And I think one of the most interesting things that we were expecting to talk about Russell Wilson, we were expecting to talk about George Paton. I don't think anybody was expecting to talk about the fact that Sean Payton admitted that he called a wrong play because his eyes weren't good. Will, that was one of those things where I was just like, I can't believe you just admitted that.
Doesn't he have those glasses? Like we see him wear the glasses. Does he need to go see the doc and get the prescription juiced up a little bit? Yeah, I mean, it's what, moment number 10 where Sean Payton said something this year where I can't believe he just said that. So maybe he had a couple lattes before the presser, but you're right. That was an interesting moment. What was your take on it?
I was just shocked that he admitted it. I mean, he was open and honest. Like, he eventually started to just kind of ramble, which you're like, okay, what's going to come out of your mouth when you start rambling? You kind of get that open and honest truth. But I wasn't expecting something of that nature. I also wasn't expecting him to confirm his decision for so many of the questionable timeouts that Broncos country has been furious over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, he doubled down on his mistakes. He said he would do it again against the Raiders in the Raiders game. I mean, that was frustrating, but let's be honest, it didn't matter. It was better for the Broncos to lose in Vegas. But the New England one, I mean, the Patriots were playing for overtime. The Patriots had given up 16 straight points. They were stunned. It was 23-all. They were willing to hand it to Zeke and go to OT where a field goal couldn't beat you, at least not on the first possession. And instead, he got greedy with his timeouts. Pat Surtain II gets burned, and then a kicker who, with all due respect, looked like the Smoky Hill High School kicker, comes in and drills a 56-yarder. So, yeah, I mean, the Raiders one I kind of get. I'm going to make them go 99 again. I get it. But to not say, you know what, New England was ready for overtime, and I should have just sort of not been so greedy and taken overtime, that one did surprise me a little bit.
You're great on Sean Payton so far this season. So far, I guess it's over on this season.
It's a C. I mean, listen, it's not an F because he got him 3 more wins, so that gets him to a C. But what did he do to get him from a C to an A? They didn't have a winning record. They didn't make the playoffs. There are multiple times you could make the case he cost some games. Both James and Zach Bye have long lists of his errors, from the onside kick against the Raiders in week 1 to the timeout debacles to calling a timeout in Kansas City on 4th down to give Patrick Mahomes 50 more seconds. I mean, there's a lot of them. I don't have them all in front of me, but yeah, getting 3 more wins gets you from an F to a C, because obviously Nathaniel Hackett got an F, but I can't get you any higher than a C. You didn't do enough, specifically in game, when we're talking about an 8-9 team. And if Sean makes literally 3 different decisions, we could be sitting here talking about 11-6 team previewing the playoffs.
Yeah, but at the exact same time, you can also be talking about a 6-win team, and Sean even pointed that out. There were certain games where they easily could have lost those games too. I'm with you. I give him a C. But the direction that they're going in, I feel like despite the questionable calls that we're obviously talking about, it feels like they're headed in the right direction, Will. And I don't know if you feel that way. I don't know if Broncos country feels that way, but I was sitting in that press conference and I'm like, they have an idea of what they want this team to look like. And even if they make the hard decisions to move on from somebody like a Garrett Bull or Justin Simmons, guys that mean a lot to Broncos country, it feels like they have a direction. And for the first time in a long time, that's kind of nice to have.
No, because they don't have the quarterback. You can't have a direction in the NFL if you don't have a QB.
You don't think they know exactly who they're going after in the draft?
No, I can say I'm going after the lottery tonight. That doesn't mean I'm going to win it. I mean, until you have the quarterback, I can't be solidified on the direction. So if you and I want to have this conversation on May 1st and Jaden Daniels is a Denver Bronco, then sure, I'll agree with you then. But no, I'm not, going to buy their BS that, we're going in the right direction when they don't have a quarterback. and they're about to be in the worst salary cap position in NFL history in terms of dead cap money. So I'm glad you walked away feeling rosy. You were in the room. I wasn't, but I didn't. I think this, as right now, if you made me pick right now, and I'm saying this could change May 1st once they have a QB, they're a 6-11 football team next year.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I feel like it can be the easiest flip a coin ever. I mean, I even said during training camp, I thought they were going to only win like 4 games. Like, I was like, this is not a good quality football that we were seeing. But would you feel better if they were keeping Russ and rolling with Russ for one more year?
No, but your point was you said they're going in the right direction. So I'd be curious to why you think they're going in the right direction, because I don't think I have any evidence to assume they're going in the right direction.
It just feels like they have a vision for exactly what they want this football team to look like. And whether or not that's going to be an $85 million dead cap hit and you are screwed right there with the salary cap, it's not like they're just sticking with it because, oh, that makes like the most logical sense in a way. It feels like they know exactly what they want. They know what type of offense they want to run. They know defensively. I mean, VJ's job is still up for question. Everybody's talking about that. And I just like that they are making moves and they're not just sticking with what they have because that's what they have in the moment. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like that's exactly what they need. This team has been so stagnant besides at the quarterback position for so long that they've just been trying to like pick and pull somebody who can fit into the system, where there are clearly other areas where they desperately need help. And so I am actually okay with kind of blowing it all up and going for the one vision that they hopefully all are agreeing on and saying, hey, we're going in this direction, whether or not we have to give up the $85 million or we have to give up somebody at Bronco Country Love and Justin Simmons or whatever to be able to achieve that vision. Now, if they will make that vision come true, I don't know. But right now, there's like a little bit of hope that it can go that way.
Yeah, I mean, they're acting with conviction. I see what you're saying. Like, it's Sean's way or the highway. And
which
I
is
would
scary too, but
I would agree with you in some sense if they had fired George Paton. I mean, George Paton hired Nathaniel Hackett. He traded for Russell Wilson. He extended Russell Wilson. And yet we have to hear yesterday how great George Paton is. Like, based on what? I mean, it's just because you like talking to George in the hallway doesn't mean, George is a bad guy. No one's accusing George of being a bad guy. But I got the impression that Sean and Greg like George the person. Great. Everyone likes George the person. I don't like George the football evaluator. I don't like George the big decision maker. And again, I think it's a message to your fans that what he did, 3 unforgivable things that sent this franchise back years, are okay. So that's where I'm just so confused of you're talking about them acting with conviction, and they are for the most part because it's Sean's way or the highway. He's got his big old broom. He broomed Russell Wilson out. He might broom Justin Simmons out. He might broom Garrett Bowles out. Might broom Tim Patrick out. Might broom Courtland Sutton out. Might broom Jerry Jeudy out. You get my point. Why didn't that broom sweep George Paton? I guess I'm just, we're 18 minutes in, and you can tell what I'm most frustrated about. That it's hard for me to get over the fact that they retained George Paton.
Listen, I have been saying George Paton is problem number 1 all along for the past 2 years. I've been saying that. So I feel your frustration, but George Paton is not making any decisions, right? Like, it doesn't matter. We can look ahead and it's all Sean Payton. You even said it twice. It's Sean Payton's way or the highway. So that's why I'm not concerned. I'm like, okay, look at the draft classes that Sean Payton has had. But at the exact same time, to counter predict myself, he put the Saints in cap hell as well. So, like, that's the only thing that makes me really nervous is he can have this vision, but can you actually achieve it with the money that you're going to have? It's a question, unfortunately, we're not going to have answered anytime soon. It's going to come down to next season and what that looks like. But it just feels like I've wanted a vision for this team for so long, and because of the rotating of coaches, there hasn't been a vision, and they've just been trying to plug and play those quarterbacks. So I'm like, yeah, you have to get rid of Russ because he's not going to fit. Get rid of Russ, and I hope you go after a quarterback. I'm with you on Jalen Daniels. I'm 100% there. I love what I've seen out of some of his highlight reels. Am I on Penix or McCarthy? Not so much. I'm kind of like, please stay away from them. But lots of people in Bronco country are saying they really like Penix. And also and I'm curious your thoughts on this too. He said that he had a meeting during the first half of the national championship game, and then he didn't really speak on anything of that nature. Did you take it as George Paton was interested in Penix or McCarthy, or were you just kind of like, you had a meeting, so you weren't really watching the game at all?
No, it's bluffing season, right? That's what all great GMs do as we head into the draft. Not that George Paton's a great GM. That's what all competent GMs do. Not that George Paton's a competent GM. That's what all GMs do as we're heading into the draft is they bluff. They're playing poker. We'll see how good his poker face was, but he definitely watched that first half. I promise you that. I did like how he told Cecil, don't scout on TV, which I agree with, because if you want to see the whole field, you got to be there in person. I get that, but No, George Paton was well aware what was going on in the national title.
I love it. Okay, the other thing that we came out, and Broncos country is talking a lot about this. Now, I caution people to remember lots of people have Photoshop. Anybody can come up with ideas when it comes to uniforms. But it seems like new uniforms are on the horizon for the next couple of years. Greg Penner made it very obvious that he wants new uniforms. He just didn't understand the process of getting new uniforms.
Yeah, when he was asked about the stadium and uniforms, he said no updates yet on either. But you're right, on uniforms, he said, I thought if you just wanted to make a new uniform, you just made a new uniform.
Yep.
Didn't realize it's a several-year process with Nike, et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned it, all kinds of rumors floating around on the internet. It did sound like Greg will probably have an update in the next few months. I would expect new uniforms by next season. I would. I think this was their last season in the old uniforms. Don't have inside info on that, just a gut. But Rachel, he wasn't going to announce it in the dungeon yesterday at a somber end of the season press conference. That's a big room press conference. New unis, I promise you that. So, yes, I would expect those sometime this spring. Again, no inside info, just a gut feeling on that.
Wow, I was thinking maybe next season. You're feeling really good about new uniforms for this upcoming one. I was not. I did not get that feel like you did.
Listen, I think Damani Leach is a very busy man, but I also think that Damani Leach isn't doing anything on the football side. So he's doing things like new uniform, new stadium, that kind of stuff. He's not picking players. He's not making trades. I think Damani's a hard worker, a good prez. I think he wants results. He wants them quick. They got $100 million in upgrades done in one offseason. They can get new uniforms done in 2 off seasons.
Okay, fair enough. Do you like the current uniforms? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Not a hot take uniform guy. Uniforms are one of those things to me. They could go out there in matching T-shirts. I don't care. Just win football games. I'm not dismissing people because I know like a large chunk of our audience and a lot of people care about uniforms. Personally, I'm not a uniform guy. I don't care about uniforms. The last time they changed uniforms, though, remember, Rachel, they won 2 Super Bowls the first 2 years. They changed those in 96. They won the Super in 97 and 98, 32 and 33. John Elway, I think, went at least 0-3. Or he did go 0-3 in the old uniforms in Super Bowls and then won the last 2 Super Bowls to end his career in the new unis. So maybe new unis, new juju. Who knows?
New juju. I like that. I'm not a big uniform person either. I'm kind of like, okay, whatever, go out there and do it. All I ask is that the orange and blue stay the prominent colors. So many people I know actually love the white, and I hate the white uniforms that they currently have. So I'm like, please just make sure orange and blue, like it should be, are the 2 prominent ones, and then white can be thrown in there every once in a while. Although I did love the white helmets this year. So I kind of go back and forth on that one.
Yeah, you can always update, but you can't leave your roots. And the roots of the Denver Broncos are orange and blue. So I'm with you. Let's make orange and blue the focus, the primary, the feature. And if you need to sprinkle in a little bit of white, you can. And please never go full NBA. Don't put the Denver Nuggets in red uniforms. Like, what are we doing here?
Thank you. Also, do you want the D to come back?
Yeah, it has to.
You said it has to?
It has to, for sure.
Okay. I like the D too, but I'm like, that was also years past, you know what I mean? Like, if we're going to do it, I feel like you just got to either come up with a new logo completely or stick with your current one. Like
But
that.
they clearly like the D. I mean, they put it on the snow cab helmets. They put it in the uniform or in the end zones a couple times this year. I mean, clearly this new ownership group is fans of the old school D logo.
True. Ugh, I'm so excited. I hope you're right about the spring. I would love to see some new uniforms. I would love to go back to the nice, beautiful auditorium over there at Dove Valley to be able to see some new uniforms. Last one on our 5 things we learned yesterday. Free agency is not going to be big right off of the bat. They don't have the money, obviously, and George Paton really alluded to this. You can't do it every single year. So definitely be patient, Broncos country. You're not going to see a lot of big moves early on.
Why don't they have the money? I mean, like, again, this is so crazy to me that the reason we don't have any money to spend is because of this guy who we're giving a microphone to and letting him spend our very limited and precious money this year. George Paton, ladies and gentlemen, like it's so crazy, Rachel. I feel like, is it Zoolander where one of them says, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills? Because I do. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills that, oh, golly gee, shucks, we don't have any money. What are we ever going to do? Oh, we're going to let the guy who's the reason we have no money spend our limited money. Like, it's crazy to me. But to a larger point, rant number 7 about George Paton over. Yes. Don't refresh Twitter on March 14th or whatever it is thinking you're going to see Broncos sign player X to 5-year, $100 million deal. They just don't have that kind of money.
No. Okay. So going back to the George Paton thing. First of all, I love your frustration. I love that you are so passionate about it. So don't ever think that it's a bad thing, Will Petersen. But who do you give credit to? Like, do you give credit to Mark Andrews, Russell Wilson's agent, because he pushed
Mark
so
Rogers.
Mark Rogers, thank you. Would I
Andrews
say
is
Mark
their
Russell?
all-pro tight end in Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, do you give credit to him because he clearly pushed so hard to get that contract extension? Or do you think that George Paton literally was like, oh, it's just going to be a Super Bowl winning year, so we might as well sign him before it goes up? Like, which side are you playing on this? Because I give it to the agent of like, I think he pushed really hard to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Rogers is obviously a heck of an agent, right?
Yeah.
He not only got Russ paid, don't forget these agents get a nice commission, so he got himself paid too. But the trade had already been done. The trade had been done for months. You and I were in the auditorium for the introductory press conference in what was it, March of 22?
Yep.
And the deal was in August of 22. I mean, at that point, the Wilson camp had no leverage. He was a Bronco. The trade was done. Listen, if the trade was contingent on the extension, then okay, George Paton had no choice. The trade had gotten done 4 months ago. There was no pressure. It was through. It was approved. Russ was at OTAs. Russ was taking the receivers to San Diego. Russ was the quarterback of the Denver Broncos moving forward. So they didn't have to do it. Mark Rogers just played chess while George Paton played checkers, and now Broncos country is paying for it.
Oh, Will, we think about the roller coaster of emotions going back to when the wide receivers were all in San Diego at his house and he had the Broncos logo and the cameraman all around. And look at where we are now. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, and I don't think it's over yet, my friend.
No, and they said, for as much as Sean said, oh, well, we didn't say goodbye. They didn't. We also got to tell the other side of that story. He said, we're going to make a decision quick. And I told Russ we're going to make a decision quick. So they're going to work the phones the next, couple months here, especially as teams like the Steelers bow out of the playoffs. They're going to try to get a trade, and then they're going to cut him if they can't find a partner. It's, I watched Mike Kliss, our 9 News 104.3 The Fan Insider last night on 9 News, and they asked him a couple times, is there any chance Russell Wilson's the quarterback of the Broncos next year? And he said 0%. So, I think anyone who took them at their word yesterday that the door is still open, the door is still only open because they want a trade partner. The door is not actually open for Russell Wilson to ever play a snap again for the Denver Broncos.
Which just makes me laugh because I'm like, if we all know this, what GM is going to, not call them on their bluff? Like, who's going to trade for him? Why would you if you have to take on that salary, but he's not going to play for him?
Well, remember, the salary can get a little creative. Like the Broncos can eat some of it. The other team can eat some of it. So I think the only way you would make a trade is say you're hypothetical. Say you're Pittsburgh and you're hearing Russ really wants to go to Atlanta. Yeah. Well, maybe you try to trade for Russ to jump in front of the Falcons because if Russ gets cut, he's going to go sign in Atlanta because that's where he wants to play.
Gotcha. So, yeah, you are putting quite a few teams in the Russell Wilson basket over there. I'm putting the Steelers, I'm putting Atlanta, like you said. Man, who else could be interested in Russell Wilson? I mean,
you look at the teams with the top draft picks, like New England, they're interested in Russ, but they're picking 3. Washington, they're interested in Russ, but they're picking 2. So, you've got to look at teams that don't really have a high draft pick and also need a QB. That's where Atlanta and Pittsburgh come to mind. Neither Atlanta Pittsburgh's picking in the top 5. Pittsburgh's pick still hasn't even been determined. And Atlanta, I believe, is right around the Broncos, if not even a little bit behind them.
Last question for you, Will Petersen. Which QB out of the draft do you like? I know you said Jalen Daniels, but realistically, I don't know if that one can happen. So of the guys that are more realistic, who do you like?
No, you're going to make me be realistic because I was going to say Caleb Williams, baby. No, Caleb Williams is by far my favorite. He's Patrick Mahomes 2.0. Reports yesterday from Peter King, the Bears are open to trading the number 1 pick. So
I saw that.
If the Bears are going to move forward with Justin Fields, you say realistic at 12, Caleb Williams is not. Realistic at 1, Caleb Williams is. There is a path to 1. How expensive is that path? I don't know. It starts with 20 zillion picks and Pat Surtain. So, how do you get to 1? I've got 3.5 months to break that down. But yeah, Caleb Williams would be my guy. And then after that, Penix really lost a lot of stock with me. McCarthy lost a lot of stock with me, and I'm not a Bo Nix guy. So I'm really all in on Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and that's pretty much it. Like, come July, if Penix is out there in orange and blue, of course I'll embrace him. Of course I'll be excited. But I'm really down to Williams and Daniels. I'm not a Drake May guy either.
I'm not a Drake May guy either, so I'm actually not even a Caleb Williams guy. I don't know. After I saw all of his off-the-field shenanigans, I was like, this could just be a headache. But that's a conversation for another day. Will Petersen, absolutely love having you. Thank you so much.
You're not looking at my face?
Let's see.
You're not a Caleb Williams guy?
I'm not.
Whatever you want to be?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm just like, he's got such a freaking big head, and that just pisses me off. Like, really, what ownership's going to be like, we'll give you partial ownership to draft you? Like, let's be realistic. I don't know. That whole conversation just really pissed me off.
You sound like Stokely. You're mad he painted his nails. No, I'm kidding.
Actually, I forgot about that, but
yeah.
Do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do.
No, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. I really think he's going to be special. I think he's going to be generational. I could be right. I could be wrong. So
another debate for next week, Will Petersen. I would love to have this one with you. So absolutely loved having you. Again, everybody in the comments, appreciate you guys hanging out with us every single day. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. If you are watching us over on YouTube, like and subscribe. That way we can get out to more Denver Broncos fans and Denver sports fans in general. You guys, we will see you tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Bye, everybody.